Welcome, everybody, to The Rundown. I'm Sunny Galt. I'm a messenger with United Network News, and we are the news division of United Network, and our mission is to bring you the real news. And our network releases lots of content throughout the week. We have in-depth news coverage, and that includes local stories as told through the eyes of our field messengers. We have restoration news, and we talk about the new Earth and where our planet is going. And then we have a report from the Global Intelligence Agency about what's really happening here on this planet in this ultimate battle of good versus evil. If you want more information about us and what we do, you can check out our website at unitednetwork.earth. If you become a member, you get access to all of our content as soon as it comes out. If that's not for you, that's okay. You can catch the information we put out, at least most of it, on YouTube and Rumble about a week later. And what this podcast is it's a week in review. So because there's so much stuff that we put out each week, I like to kind of do a rundown of the stories so you know what you may want to catch up on, maybe what you missed, maybe stories you want to share with other people. It's all about thinking critically, asking questions, and then sharing with other people. That's how we're going to get the word out about our planet, what's happening, all the lies that have been told to us, and that's what we're all about. So as far as announcements go, the biggest announcement is we have completely reformatted the news and the information that we bring to you guys. If you noticed, even the intro that I gave was a little bit different because we were combining everything into one newscast. But what we decided to do is to break things up a little bit because everybody's coming from a different place. And some people are ready to hear the full picture of what's going on, and some people aren't quite there yet, and we don't want to turn off those people. Everyone's going to grow at their own pace. So what we've done is we've created our news updates, and that is, not as many stories, but more in-depth stories, a little bit more of the background of how we got to this place. We have our field messenger reports that are part of our news updates. Then we have our Global Intelligence Agency operational report, the GIA report. That's the equivalent of what we were doing with the World Situation Report. And the World Situation Report used to be part of our newscast that we put out, but now we've made that separate. Okay, so just so no one's confused, the World Situation Report has now been branded the GIA report. And we are also going to relaunch the New Earth because that used to be a portion of our news as well. But we wanted to really get more in depth, and you can't really do that in the format it was in. So now we're going to do more like a news magazine format where there's longer pieces, longer interviews, and that will be released separately as well, multiple times per week. We're still trying to figure all of that out. It's not out this week because we're still trying to figure out the news and the GIA report, but that is coming, I promise. That's one of my favorite things, to talk about the new Earth and where we're going. But the news is important as well, and the GIA report. So lots of things going on that also impacts our format here for the rundown. So I've had to reformat that a little bit. We are going to mainly focus on the stories covered in our news updates. I will provide a little bit of information from the GIA report, and probably just a quick rundown once we do get into the New Earth show, news magazine show. I might tell you some of the guests that we talked with, but my main focus is going to be on these news updates. Okay, so let's go ahead and get to it. Here's the rundown of stories you may have missed this week on United Network. So let's start with our news update. I'm going to give you a rundown of the field messenger reports. Then we'll talk about our main news stories, a brief overview of some stuff talked about in the GIA report, and then we'll wrap things up. So our field messengers are the heart and soul of what United Network News is all about. We believe you guys are the best people to tell stories of what's actually happening in your community. So let's go through the stories that we discussed this week and that we showed you this week, thanks to our field messengers. All right. Kim from Iowa did a story on the Matthew 25 project. So this is an urban farm project in Iowa, and it transforms empty lots into spaces for growing food. They also teach people about food. They bring the community together. They make great pizza. They were showing us in the video some of this incredible like wood fire pizza. Looked amazing. And so Kim did a story on this, not Kimberly Gogan, another Kim, and she explains how these people are making a difference in the community. And that's really what we want to highlight, right? The good stuff that's going on in our world. Then Rick from Arizona does a story about vintage cars and all these enthusiasts that gathered together. They were admiring all of these classic cars. I wish I could rattle off all the names of the cars to you guys, but that's not my jam. I'm like, it's a car and it's shiny and blue. But Rick loves cars. And so he attended this and showed us all the beautiful automobiles that gathered. Rosemary from Australia shows us the Three Creeks Farmers Market. I love looking at farmers markets because everyone does something a little bit different. But this is a community initiative, and it supports local growers and producers. She takes us on a tour of the market, and they really did have some unique products. I know there was one vendor there that had crushed down these different leaves so into like a fine powder, so you could use that in various recipes. So not just your normal stuff that you see at farmers markets. It was pretty cool. Louise from Malaysia takes us on a family nature day. So this was an opportunity for children and their families in Malaysia to get outdoors, to get into nature, and to really learn about nature. So they had like these outdoor classes, and it's kind of like homeschooling kind of environment. So really beautiful. Then Monica in Romania, she shared with us a place that she visited, an underground glacier in Romania. And the glacier itself contains a lot of information such as historical climate patterns, ecological evolution, what happened on the land. But this is a site that you can go to. They do a lot of scientific research there. And she takes us on a journey and shows us it's really cool. Everything, it's kind of in this cave area, really pretty. And then Chris out of California in the U.S., he takes us to Forest Hill Bridge and River. This is close to where he lives. Because you guys, these stories don't have to be really far away, right? You probably have amazing things happening right there in your community. And so this is a gorgeous natural landscape, these beautiful bridges, and it's outside, obviously. Really pretty trees, amazing for outdoor enthusiasts. And Chris gives us some highlights about the area's attractions and different activities in the area. So if you are interested in showing us what's going on in your community, we would love that. You can go to our website, unitednetwork.earth, go to the field messenger section. And then from there, there's information. We have tips and, things about how you can shoot your stories, like record your stories, and tips on lighting, things like that, if you need it. But you really don't need any experience. Most of us have these little things called cell phones or mobile phones. They've got pretty good cameras built right into it. Just show us what's going on. And we have a whole team of producers that gather the content and then edit it together for you. And they'll help you with every step of the journey. So even if you've never done anything like this before, check it out. You all have an important story to share, and we want to know what's going on in your area. So consider becoming a field messenger today. Okay, so for our regular news stories, this is a combination of information and research that Kim has done, information and research I have done. We've got a writing team that helps us with this. And some of the stories are more timely. Some of the stories are kind of timely, but we basically give ourselves a little bit more opportunity to go into the history of why this story is important. We got some feedback this week about, I really like the format where you just gave us the latest quote unquote news. This is definitely a change from that. There's fewer stories, and we are going more in depth. because people need to know the story behind it. Most of the people that watch the previous newscast that we were putting out, you guys are very savvy people. And we kind of lock ourselves into this group of very savvy people that know what's going on this planet, but that doesn't necessarily help the other people out there that are just now waking up to the world. And so what we want these stories to be is information that someone who isn't as entrenched, hasn't gone down all the rabbit holes maybe you or I have gone down. We want these stories to be attractive to them and to teach them something, and also to get them to perhaps do a little bit more research on their own, start questioning things more. So some of this may be repeat for you guys, but we're hoping that you take this information and share it with other people who, may not listen to something like the Global Intelligence Agency report. That's like a little too far out there for them. And so we kind of need to, it's a little bit of, I hate to say this, but hand-holding a little bit in a very gentle way. And so if I can think of many people in my life that I can share these stories with that I couldn't, share the complete newscast of what we were putting out before. So we hope you guys enjoy it. We're having a lot of fun doing research on this. It's definitely pushing us, to finesse our skills in different ways and to, just grow, grow our skill base, and get us out of our comfort zone, that's for sure. So let's go through some of these stories. Kim did a story on the port worker strike. That was obviously a big story this week. There's a lot of behind the scenes information that you might be interested in. The whole thing with the strike was supposed to be about wages and working conditions. And while I am sure that all of that could be improved, at the very top of all of this was still deep state driven. And what they wanted to do is use this port worker strike to shut down key areas of distribution in the United States and to essentially shut down the government. That was a big thing they were talking about this week. Now, that didn't quite happen, but that was on the table. And so we go into the story of that and what was actually going on with the port workers. So it might be something you want to check out. I also did this story about plastic bags at grocery stores. So here in the U.S., and as I learned, because I'm learning too as I do these stories, this impacts people around the world. But we used to have these plastic bags that you would just get at the grocery store. And we're now seeing several laws being passed saying that no longer works. And you have to have either these thicker plastic bags that are reusable or the cloth bags. So we break down what's going on here. And, the politicians that are saying this, are they being truthful? Do they have sincere intentions here? We're kind of questioning all of this. And this was a story, too, where we got input from our field messengers. So this is a new thing that we're doing. If you're part of our Telegram group for the field messengers, I'm going to try to do it once a week where we pick a story and we have you guys submit little videos to contribute to a story that we're working on. And this was one for this week. And I wanted to know, do you use plastic bags? Do you use cloth bags? Why? How has this impacted you? And so if you want to hear what everyone had to say, you have to watch the story. All right, another story about bricks and them selling memberships. Is this false advertising? This was from Kim. Kim did a lovely job of giving you a very, a pretty expansive history of bricks, how it came to be, breaks down some of the main members of bricks and a little bit of their history. I want to play a quick soundbite. This is Kim talking about some of the things that they're working on lately because they're trying to do this currency and it keeps faltering and there's all these promises and it really seems to be going nowhere, but there's still all this hype. It's very strange. Here's Kim.
BRICS has been making a whole lot of promises, such as a new BRICS digital currency, funding from the BRICS Bank or the Asian Infrastructure and Investment Bank, freedom from the Federal Reserve and the tyranny of Western nations. Insiders within the South African Treasury have shown our sources proof that the elite of South Africa had wallets full of this BRICS currency, which was supposed to launch at last year's BRICS meeting. As of the time of this report, no such currency is spendable, and the elite are being promised that they will be wealthy beyond their wildest dreams soon. The Chinese have also made many contracts throughout the African continent against rare earth minerals. They have been continuing to mine despite the lack of payment, resulting in many violations of international law. The Russian elite have spent billions of their own money trying to keep their promises to all the nations BRICS is courting. They too have been dangling the carrot of big payouts to come, which have also fallen flat. However, that does not stop them from continuing their quest of a world dominated by BRICS nations.
Kim also does another report on America and whether or not we're actually paying for something that Israel's trying to do, right? We send a ton of money. In fact, I think Congress just approved sending billions of more dollars over to Israel. So what is happening here? What is this Greater Israel Project? Have you heard of that before? Why are we sending so much money over there? She does a report on that. Did you know that your car could be shut down remotely? I don't know if you've seen any of this stuff online. I think a lot of it's being shadow banned, but there are people out there talking about, listen, I couldn't make a payment, so my car got shut down. I couldn't fix a battery, my car got shut down. All these different things. Well, there was an article not too long ago involving Elon Musk and how he apparently shut down this really decked out Tesla Cybertruck for this warlord in Chechnya. And this warlord, this had like a rocket thing on it. It was crazy. And so it prompted me to do a story, a little bit more of an in-depth story about, hey, it's not just these cars or these tanks that are being used for war purposes. It's all of these other cars. In fact, they've been able to do this for a long time. I know that sounds a little scary. My intent is not to scare you guys, but it's to inform you because we're seeing a lot of things be passed right now. What does it actually mean, these bills being passed? And it's giving them a lot of ability to control your car. And I'm not so sure that that's a good thing. I also did a story this week about lighting and how it affects your mood and behavior. So we talked about red light. We talked about blue light coming in from the sun. So that's a popular topic, can definitely affect you if you're feeling a little off. Maybe check your lighting. We talk about interest rates and buying homes because I think it was a few weeks ago that the Fed finally lowered their interest rate. They hadn't done that since 2020. So this is a more in-depth report about how the Fed lowering the interest rate, does that impact you if you want to buy a home? It goes back to this idea of buying a home, at least in the U.S. It's part of this American dream, but very few people can do that nowadays. And we really went down the rabbit hole with this story because we ended up talking about the Federal Reserve and the true purpose behind the Federal Reserve. And that is a big eye-opener if you haven't heard that story before. So I encourage you guys to check that one out. I did a story on how tech impacts your optical health. And I interviewed this lovely man. His name is John Davis. He is an optician. Now, an optician is the person that helps you find the best lenses for your eyes. So they don't do the exams and things like that, but they're helping you correct the problem, right? And so we talk about technology and what's happening in technology and how that can impact your eyes. It can impact your brain. It's a really good story, guys, to share with kids. And that's a good reminder. I need to share it with my two boys who, I'm trying to keep them off electronics as much as possible. But yeah, that is a daily battle. I do want to play a quick soundbite from that story with John, and he's talking about ADHD and its relation to using this technology. And I know that that's very controversial for some people, but it's important that we hear from experts who have seen this with their customers. So here's John.
The blue light is breaking their sleep cycle, the circadian rhythm, and that's what's causing the ADHD. It's a focusing issue. So I don't like to take meds you don't have to take, especially for a child who their body's developing. You really want to get control of the the phones, the cell phone. I think that's the big culprit. I really do. Because the screens, again, on the computers and the iPads, laptops are covered. But the phone, and kids always hold them too close.
Yeah, that's an important point that John made. You know, if you see your kids and they're like staring at a phone, usually it's way too close to their eyes. And there are filters, but for some reason, those filters aren't usually available for cell phones. There's filters built in for desktops and laptops, but not very much for cell phones unless you put one of those screen protectors. They actually have those for blue light that can filter out a lot of that stuff. So something to consider for your kids and maybe even for you, if you're on technology quite a bit. Kim did a story about the United Nations. They just wrapped up their General Assembly. We've shown some video of how there's like no one in the audience. So what is going on over there at the United Nations? Are they actually saying anything worthwhile? Kim gives us an update. I talked to a dentist about dental health for kids. And the reason this story came about was because I went to the dentist recently with my girls. I have twin girls who are 10 years old. And I was shocked at all the work they wanted to do to the girls. I felt like these procedures were invasive, not necessary, especially on teeth that they were going to lose. In fact, one of the teeth that they were planning to do stuff to just fell out recently. And I'm like, well, I'm glad I didn't pay thousands of dollars to do whatever crazy procedure they wanted me to do. So this prompted me to reach out to a dentist because I think it's important for us to know that dental care for adults is a little bit different than dental care for kids. And this story took a completely different turn than what I thought it was going to be. I thought we were going to talk about brushing your teeth and flossing and all this kind of stuff. No, that is not where this story went. It totally focused on mouth breathing and how mouth breathing is the main culprit for cavities. Take a listen.
The biggest category for getting or causing cavities for children is breathing through your mouth, not the sugar or the home care. So if we think about what happens is the saliva is very protective and it's like a shield. So saliva is our shield on our teeth and it prevents the bugs from making the cavities. Well, if our mouth is closed and we are breathing through our nose, then what happens is the saliva remains coating the teeth, the air goes behind the tongue to get into our lungs, and sure enough, our teeth remain coated by the saliva, protected. But as soon as we start to mouth breathe, whether it's a little bit during the day or at night, or both, mouth breathing dries off the teeth. And when we dry off the saliva, that creates the environment where the little bugs that are in our mouth normally, basically bacteria, we all have bacteria in our mouth, but they're more active when there's less saliva. So you're taking away the shield, so they get to chisel away on the teeth, making the cavities. So most children are getting the cavities because of the mouth breathing.
Isn't that amazing? Have you guys ever heard that before? That was like a light bulb aha moment for me because as a parent, like with my girls, I was floored that the dentist wanted to do all of this work on their mouth. And I thought, oh my gosh, like I thought they were brushing their teeth, and there's this stuff that we don't even know about, and we have this guilt complex as parents, like, oh my gosh, my kid has all these cavities. And here it could be a result of mouth breathing. I never heard that before. So make sure you tell all the parents out there, mouth breathing is an epidemic. And it's not just about brushing teeth, and everything that goes along with that home care he was talking about, there's just so much we don't know. We also did a story this week on toxic feminine hygiene products. This is something I recognized about a year ago, and I did a bunch of switching of my healthcare routine. And you know what got me going on this is what they were putting in the masks during COVID, those, anything that had like a cotton tip to it. And they were seeing all of this nasty stuff under a microscope. And that got me thinking about tampons and pads and other things that women use. And I was like, oh, I don't trust that either now. So I kind of went through this about a year ago, but there's still a lot of people that don't understand all of the different things that go into these products that we're either putting in very sensitive areas or in some cases inside of our bodies. So I did this really good interview because she's just so good on camera with Jennifer Eden. She's with a company that she co-founded called Tampon Tribe, and she's super knowledgeable. Here's a soundbite of her talking about why we need to be focused on this and why it's important.
There was a big trend toward that, and you still see plenty of products on the shelves. And that's, of course, very alarming when it comes to tampons. Tampons go inside your body. I mean, pads also go on your body, both in very sensitive areas. So any chemical that you have on a tampon or a pad goes straight into your bloodstream, and it impacts the endocrine system kind of instantly. So we've seen a massive increase in irritation, in infertility. And a lot of people are going to an extreme reaction to that rather than saying, wait a second, what is in my tampon? What is in my pad? Can I switch to a truly organic, toxin-free brand and see how that impacts my health?
As the fighting continues over in the Israel-Palestine area, Kim takes a look at the oil market. And what are the numbers and the prices for oil right now? And is this being rigged against consumers? Is this an opportunity for them to exploit numbers? What are these numbers even based on? And what I loved about Kim's report is she showed a lot of clips, older news clips of people at the pump talking about the price for petrol or gasoline. And it's really giving us more of a history of, where we've been, because we have to know how all the pieces come together, right? So it's a very interesting report. I talked with a homesteader, which may not be the person that you would think of to talk with about this topic, which is finances. Now, I could have probably talked to a financial advisor, but what I love about this story, the story is about simplifying your finances. And a homesteader usually has taken a look at his or her life, the life of his family, which is, in this case, Corey is who I interviewed. He did that. And there was a lot of extra stuff, and I'm sure if you and I looked at our credit card statement or bank statement and we looked at everything that we buy, we would probably be scratching our heads at some stuff. Like, why am I doing that? So when it comes to your finances and things being very complicated, if you reduce all the clutter, which is usually what homesteaders do, right? They reduce the clutter and then their finances become more simple. So yeah, Corey and I talk about simplifying your finances and what he did as part of his whole homesteading project, but it was really an effort to get control of his finances and just live a more simple life. So very interesting story. And our last story is about insects. Should we be eating insects? I think you guys know what we're going to say on this. There's a lot of hype out there. There are a lot of celebrities talking about eating bugs, and they've been doing that for years. And the World Economic Forum is throwing that in your face as well, saying, oh, population, it's getting out of control. And if you want protein, then, bugs are in abundance. So you ground them up and put them in all this kind of stuff. So we take a slightly different approach to this. We actually talk about frequency and show some really interesting video of this. She's a professor. I don't know if she's still in, academia, but she did these studies and she recorded this video. She was able to enhance it through a computer, basically showing a person's aura. And part of the video was someone with a dog and the aura and the love that they felt for their dog. And it was just beautiful, this beautiful blue aura. And then she also showed someone eating fast food and how the aura completely changed to like pretty much nothing. It was like lifeless, right? And what a lot of people don't realize is if you're going to eat an insect, you're basically consuming what the insect consumes. So if the insect is going around in trash, I mean, I know there are some insects that eat leaves, but it's such a small portion. You know how many bugs you'd have to eat in order for, to make that work? So we question this from a quantum perspective. Are you really going to feel that energized by eating these bugs? What's really going on here? What's the purpose of the World Economic Forum telling you that you shouldn't eat livestock and now you need to eat these bugs? And I know it's kind of a funny story, and there are some places that are kind of funny in this report, but it's also like it's insane. It's insane. All right, let's give you guys some highlights from the Global Intelligence Agency operational report. As I mentioned earlier, this is what the World Situation Report used to be. We are branding it a little bit differently because it's kind of hard for people to understand the amount of control, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but control that Kim has, for example, over the financial system and all the other hats that she wears. It's hard for people to wrap their head around that. She's almost like a superhero character, and it's hard to trust a superhero character because that's supposed to be from a comic book, right? So what people do understand are these agencies. We understand the FBI. We understand the CIA. So we figured it would be a little bit easier to understand that there was and is an agency that oversees all of them, and that is the Global Intelligence Agency, and Kim heads the GIA. So we're presenting it in this format so people get it. It's just going to be a lot more easy for people to understand how she has this information. Now, most people have not heard of the Global Intelligence Agency before. That is by design. The people that knew about this needed to know about it, and the general public was not on that list. But now, Kim talks about it as if about 10 years ago, the GIA went rogue. And that's true. It went rogue from working with these horrible people for the devastation of our planet and of humanity to basically flipping a switch under Kim's command and working for the light. So this agency has access. When I say the highest security clearance on the planet, you guys have heard me talk about that. This is why. This is part of the reason why. So let's talk about some of the things that are happening on the planet. I'm not going to play a lot of sound bites of what the deep state is doing. It is important that we understand certain things, and I'll try to give you a quick breakdown of some of the things that happened this week, but I really just don't want us focused on that too much. I want us focused on the future, and if there's awesome things happening, like the Earth terraforming, we're going to talk about that, I'll probably play sound bites if it's something that's positive that's happening to our world. But I don't want to give the deep state any more fuel than they already have, and I'm certainly not trying to manifest any of the crazy stuff that they're throwing at us, okay? So let's get started. Let's talk about some of these things. Kim talked about Alexander Soros. So this is the son of George Soros, who has taken over for his dad. That's not the end of the story. I don't believe George Soros is even around anymore. That's not in the public. That's not public information, but he was on his last legs a long time ago. Anyways, his son has now taken over. He promised $54 billion to the deep state and their generals to push forward with what we call the Greater Israel Project, which is why you saw more things ramp up in the Middle East this week. So all this money was promised, but no money came, yada, yada. We've heard this story a million times. I don't know why they keep believing that there's money there and money never comes, but I guess they don't know what else to do. So that led to deep state generals coming up with another plan, and that was to tag onto what I mentioned earlier, this port strike. And, could they enhance that some way? Could they tag onto that? Could they create global martial law? If you watched the Q boards this week, they claimed that it was going to happen, complete shutdown of the government. And once we got within like an hour of it, it changed, like the date changed. And that really didn't happen. Although, this is an interesting thing. Kim said that at least for now, they're saying, well, the shutdown's not going to happen now. It's going to happen October 10th. And that's because we are now in a holiday period for people of the Jewish faith. So Rosh Hashanah, we already had Rosh Hashanah. Yom Kippur is coming up. And they basically said, we're not doing anything during this time. So now apparently the shutdown is going to happen on October 10th. I seriously doubt that. But, Kim talked about this week. Even if they do try something like this, humanity is so resilient. And we have seen time and time again where people come together to help each other. and you forget about your political differences and all this crazy nonsense that they keep throwing at us, and you focus on just being a good human. And that actually leads me to another thing Kim talked about this week, which was Hurricane Helene. If you're wondering, this was a natural event originally. And if you look online, you'll see a lot of stuff about HAARP and other weather modification systems. It actually wasn't HAARP. They don't have access to any of that anymore. And this wasn't caused by the deep state, but this was caused by an AI system that is not listening to the deep state. It's totally autonomous. And it was created to do horrible things to our planet and to humanity. So the deep state isn't doing any of this. This is an old AI system that is literally on its last legs. We've been talking about this, the death of Omega. And it changed the weather pattern for Hurricane Helene. It did some nasty stuff. We were hearing reports of power outages affecting more than 2 million people. And not just, started in Florida, but upwards, North Carolina. But it's examples like this and where we see humanity shine the brightest, right? Like I said, people coming out and supporting each other, offering food, assistance in other ways. On that note, Kim also mentioned that, and we've said this before, FEMA is nowhere to be found. That's because FEMA is bankrupt. And even when they had money, they didn't do hardly anything to help in natural disaster situations. They would show up, take some pictures, and, that's pretty much it. So the fact that they're not around is not necessarily a bad thing. The other thing we want to give you a heads up on is the Red Cross. Do not donate to the Red Cross. I have a friend that actually works locally for her Red Cross. Those people don't know what's going on. They have a lovely heart. They're trying to help people. But at the top, the Red Cross is a money laundering operation. If you donate to some 800 number, it is never going to get to where you want it to go. So if you really want to help out, if you have extra money or support somehow, and you want to help out the people that are struggling as a result of Hurricane Helene, the best thing to do is, look on Facebook. There's some groups there. There's probably some GoFundMe pages, and try to do it as locally as possible. If you know someone that's close by, maybe they can help put together some stuff and take it into town. Do it locally with individual people. Do not trust these large so-called charities because, their money is going to stuff you would never want it to go to. And don't even get me started on what the Red Cross is doing with all that blood. Okay. Also, Kim mentioned, the deep state is running around in circles. They do not understand why, they're going through the steps to get all of this money. Because it used to be there was a formula, you send out disease, you create wars, whatever they could do that was in their purview, they would do this stuff. And then, money would come out of the Omega system through Alpha, but ultimately into the Omega system. And they would get paid for doing all this bad stuff. And they're doing this bad stuff and nothing is happening. And they don't understand why. So a lot of what was talked about in the GIA reports this week were about why this is not happening, why this formula is not working for them anymore. Sometimes when Kim does these reports, she's actually talking to the deep state. I mean, we're learning too because we're watching the report, but it's, sometimes they need to hear what's going on, and let's hope something actually sticks this time. I do want to play one soundbite, and that is an update that Kim gives on the terraforming of Earth. So how our planet is changing, like I said, Omega is leaving, and then this nasty matrix that we've been under, this illusion that we thought was reality but is not reality, is removing. And that's encouraging, right? So I like to play sound bites of good things, and this is Kim talking about the status of the Earth and its terraforming.
The terraforming. This is kind of exciting for those of you that have been following all the changes that have been going on Earth. The terraforming process is about 98.6% complete, which means that the hologram has less and less influence. And what you're seeing predominantly is more of reality. it was done in such a way where there wouldn't be a whole lot of glitching, and you may notice subtle changes once the complete changeover takes place. This is very disturbing and scares the heck out of the deep state that knows that that video game was the only thing that ever gave them power, even to some degree, because it didn't actually control it in any way, but it could nudge it in certain directions to create problems and issues. So this is good for us, because neutering those people that are going around in circles is of the utmost importance, and I've told them so. Without that, there isn't any manipulation of finances, or, they can stop oil and gas from flowing, I guess. I don't know, but we can then make our own. It's amazing what can happen when you're dealing directly with the creator as it relates to nature itself. You can have more influence over nature, just like Sasquatch do. That's just another race and another species that inhabits this planet. They have the ability to manipulate nature, so can you. So there's a lot of interesting things that are going to come about with the new terraforming of planet Earth, and we will definitely keep you updated. I'm hoping, everything is in sources time, so just remember that. I am hoping and praying that over the weekend, this will complete. It is looking like that might be the case. I know at the time, I did not disclose this to you because I was concerned what the deep state would do. The Lionsgate of 8/8, we talked about it quite a bit. There was a lot of push and shove with Astaroth and some other beings and things that they created at that time that are no longer with us. But this gate is unusual compared to others in the past, and it will stay open probably into the end of October, beginning of November, which means that as long as it needs to stay wide open, like it is with that connection to source, the faster this process is going to happen.
So that's beautiful, right? I had no idea that everything that was going on with Lionsgate, that portal is still open, and that Source is doing what Source needs to do. There's some things that are just in Source's timing, and we have to be patient, as tough as that is. And, this kind of feels like it drags out sometimes, but it's happening the way it needs to happen. And this has never happened before. So it's really hard to gauge the right timing for all of this. I mean, it just truly is in Source's hands. But I'm excited about the terraforming. I'm excited about this matrix going away and us truly being able to see the world and reality as it's supposed to be. Like Kim talked about this computer game or video game, the deep state generals would talk about that as, oh, they're not part of the game. They manipulate the game. Well, the game is being taken away. And now we're all on equal footing. And I think that's a very beautiful thing. So thank you guys for listening to today's show. It was a little bit different. I see that it's a lot shorter than it normally is. And that's because I'm including sound bites from different stories, not just of Kim's stuff and talking about the GIA, but of all different types of stories. So we'll see. Maybe it'll stay short. Maybe we'll add some more. This is all a work in progress. But I appreciate you guys being here. If you want to become a member, you can go to unitednetwork.earth and get access to all of our content immediately as it comes out. That includes our news updates, the New Earth interviews when those come out. Those haven't been released yet, but we're working on that. The entire Global Intelligence Agency operational report, and everything that we talk about, all things restoration. This is The Rundown, and I'm Sunny Galt for United Network News, signing off.